So we all know the situation in Afghanistan is dire. Of course, the Taliban retaking the country earlier this year. Federal government, Canadian government, promised to bring around 40,000 Afghan refugees into Canada. Well, the year's almost done, and only a tenth of that promise of 40,000 have been brought back into Canada. They're saying it's going to take up to 2 years to bring the rest of those refugees here. Many delays, a lot of them unforeseen. Let's get more on this with Dave Morrow, former soldier. He's now based in Montreal, also involved with Afghan interpreters. Dave, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Listen, first things first, because it says here you work with Afghan interpreters, and I know that was such a huge of such huge importance when the Taliban retook the country. How Canada was doing right by those interpreters that had helped us for so long. Do you have an update there?
I do. I mean, essentially, what we're seeing is a complete and utter stall out of getting Afghans here to Canada. There's simply just a trickle. So on our side at Afghan Canadian Interpreters, our organization is essentially keeping the lifeline open for communications to those Afghans that are really not getting much information from the federal government. Some of them are getting ghosted, which is unacceptable, and others just have applications that just go nowhere or are asked to redo their application. So as it stands right now, things are not looking good. We don't have a presence on the ground in Afghanistan, and those that are still stuck in Afghanistan are in an ever more desperate situation day by day.
Dave, you just said some people are getting ghosted, and that's a word we use when we talk about dating apps. And to hear it used to talk about Afghan refugees, man, that must be so frustrating and appalling for you.
It is, because these are the individuals that kept us alive on the ground. They require a certain amount of respect when dealing with them. And it's almost as if the bureaucratic machine only looks at them like a number. And what they don't realize is that dropping off communications with them is a crippling side effect of essentially not responding to emails. And that needs to be rectified. And I don't know how that's going to happen, but we're trying to fill a gap as much as possible with our communications using our messenger apps.
So, Dave, the Taliban's in charge of the country now. So I imagine there's a lot of roadblocks, figuratively and literally, that are in place in the country. Can you talk about just how Canada is going about, if for the people that they are succeeding in bringing into Canada, how are they doing it? And what are some of the issues there? Because I would imagine logistically this is a huge problem.
Well, I can only really speak to what my situation is looking like, and I'm briefly on what our organization is able to accomplish. Essentially, the Afghans are up to their own devices. If they figure out a way to get across a border into Pakistan or through the northern countries, then that's up to them. They need to spend their own money. They need to ensure their own safety. And speaking from my own experience, I've been have supported families in their endeavors, and it's Western Union transfers. It's me asking my network of friends and my mother's network of retirees for $100 here, $200 there, so that we can support them while they're waiting in limbo for a response when they do get to a third-party country to get over to Canada. So the process is ugly. It's not the way it should be. And essentially, we're seeing a complete and utter paralysis of the Canadian government on this front.
We're with Dave Morrow, former soldier. He's now based in Montreal. He's involved with Afghan interpreters. Dave, let's talk about this 40,000 number. Who makes up this 40,000?
Right. So this 40,000 is there's a lot of what we call LECs, so locally engaged civilians that worked for the Canadian Armed Forces during the war, but it also includes those that worked on compounds that weren't necessarily interpreters. It also includes their family members. So Afghans tend to have very large families, upwards of 6 to 7 people. So this encompasses everybody and anybody that was involved during the war effort to support Canada during those 10 years. And so it's a wide berth. It casts a wide net. So it also includes religious minorities, you name it. And it's those individuals that we need to really provide as much protection for, because they were directly implicated in our war effort and are, of course, now targeted by the Taliban as being spies or enemies of their state.
Dave, what explains this massive dropping of the ball here? What explains this incompetence in this dossier?
You know what? I wish I had an answer. I had high ideals. I held my country to a higher standard. I deployed and decided to put my life on the line for my own country with the hopes that this unwritten contract of professionalism and competence would be upheld at all times. And unfortunately, it hasn't. And I wish I had the answers. There needs to be some sort of inquiry here. That's clear, because this type of incompetence and this type of ball dropping cannot be the norm for our country and cannot be how we're perceived on the world stage from here on in.
David, at the risk of you breaking my heart and the hearts of our listeners here with a story, what are you hearing when you email or you talk on the phone with people still in Afghanistan? What are they telling you?
I often put myself in the shoes, because I'm a father, in those fathers' shoes when they're there. And hearing their stories of desperation, that the Taliban is going door to door, they're going to take my daughters. I have a daughter myself, and it's hard for me to just conceptualize that. And the heartbreak is hard to take, and it requires some distance at times, because there's so many in that situation right now. And as a small organization that has zero funding, it's next to impossible to protect them all. And that's where our government needs to step in and do a lot more than what they're doing right now.
Dave, where does the pressure need to go? And maybe have you had discussions with whoever the minister is? Like, where does the pressure need to go inside the government to see movement? And tell me about those discussions where you've put the pressure on.
So again, that's a great question. It seems like the responsibility has been abdicated to the entire bureaucracy. Nobody seems to want to take the ultimate responsibility for this catastrophic failure. And ultimately, like I said earlier, we need some sort of inquiry to figure out why this went wrong, who needs to be held accountable, and therefore never be in this position so that we repeat the same mistake again. So ultimately, the ministers, those that are at the head, need to take the responsibility for this catastrophe and say, look, we messed up, we're going to fix it, and this is the way we're going to do it moving forward. But we've yet to see that, and therefore we don't expect any big changes in the future until they accept the fact that they made mistakes and that they need to come up with a plan that's actually going to get these Afghans to Canada. 40,000
Afghans. We've only brought around 10% of them into the country. They say we need 2 more years. Do you believe them that they'll get this job done in 2 years?
No, I have no faith in that whatsoever. And let's not forget, too, we still have Afghans and their families from the first special immigration program, which ended in 2011, that have yet to come to Canada. So am I confident? No. We still have plenty of Afghans that are still stuck in third-party countries that have yet to have their documents and their visas approved. So can we do this in 2 years? That is never going to happen.
What's the most frustrating part of this, Dave?
The most frustrating part about this is that we decided to go into a country, fight a war for 10 years, the longest war in Canadian history, and yet we had no follow-on plan as to what we're going to do with all those individuals that we had fight for us and with us and that believed in us, so that we can have some sort of stance on the international stage and say, look, we protect our allies and we respect that bond. And unfortunately, politicians are only looking 4 years ahead. We're not looking on a strategic level, and therefore we're presented with the situation we see right now. We have no plan and no way forward, and I don't know what we're going to do as a country, but this is definitely a time for soul-seeking.
Dave, I want to thank you for telling us this story and giving us your insight and your emotion, bringing it to our program. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Dave Morrow, former soldier. He's based in Montreal, now involved with the Afghan interpreters and trying to bring them into Canada and fulfill Canadian promises.